Hey there, V from Movies Hunter here. If you're one of those people who love peeking at your neighbors all the time, welcome! This movie is definitely for you. The Voyeurs is a drama mystery thriller film that I recently watched, and I guarantee that after watching this movie you will never ever peek at your neighbors again, perv. The movie opens in Montreal where a young couple, Peep and Tom, move into their first apartment together. Pip tells Tom, "Uy, my tummy, my hotdog. I don't want kids now. Not for at least 4 years, okay? Condom. She says that she was always studying in her school and never had the opportunity to do something interesting in her life that she would remember forever. The two then realize that their windows look directly into the apartment across the street, where a man with a professional studio is taking photographs of a woman. A few moments later, Pip and Tom are then seen watching the photographer romancing the woman. Although Tom wants to keep watching, Pip stops him by saying that, "Uy, my tummy, my hotdog, we should not spy on our neighbors, le. No. Pip works as a trainee at La Boutique. There, she receives a bird feeder from her boss as a housewarming gift. When she returns home, she then presses the bell button so that she gets notified when we make new videos. And she also urges you to do the same." After a while, Tom and her then decide to continue watching their neighbors and wonder what kind of people they might be. What a very creative exercise. Now, to further progress into their creative exercise, they then give their neighbors pseudonyms, Margot Robbie and Brett Rivera. The next evening, while returning home from work, Little Bo Peep right here buys a binocular so that she and Tommy Hotdog can watch their neighbors. The two see that Brent has invited a model for dinner. It turns out that this Brent Rivera right here romances the models while Margot Robbie is out. Pip is thrilled by what she sees and wants Tom to do the same to her. Later at night, as Pip can't sleep, she decides to see what Brent is doing. She sees that Margot Robbie is home and feels bad for her as she may not know that Brent is cheating on her. One day, while hanging out with her friends, Pip expresses that she wants to listen to their neighbors talking. One of her friends reveals that Tom knows a way to listen in on another room using a laser pointer. This is some amazing spy shit right here. So basically, Pip convinces Tom to tell her how this thing works. Tom, let's call him Tom Cruise at this point. Tom Cruise explains that the process requires a reflective surface to send the laser beam back to them, and then only they can hear what their neighbors are saying. But to do that, they need to place a mirror behind Brett's studio so that the beam bounces back to their own apartment. Just then, Pip sees that Brent and Margot Robbie are throwing a Halloween costume party. Pip gets an idea and decides to sneak into the party by posing as a guest. When they get a chance, Pip quickly places a mirror in the apartment without anyone noticing. The two then return to their apartment and finish setting up the device. After some tweaking and all that, the two are finally able to listen in on their neighbor's conversation. Yay! But they are unsettled to hear Margot Robbie confronting Brent about his adultery. But Brent plainly refuses to cheat on her and instead blames her for not loving him. Bruh. He then assaults Margot Robbie and convinces her that her suspicions are unfounded. Pip and Tom are shocked to see them fighting but can't do anything. The next day, Margot Robbie visits La Boutique to get a pair of new glasses. She tells Pip that her name is Julia. After the eye test, Pip gives her a pair of glasses and tells her that she looks amazing. Before leaving, Julia invites Pip to hang out with her, to which Pip agrees. Back at home, Tom is watching Brent having an affair with another one of his models. Pip is beginning to feel bad for Julia and wants to warn her about Brent's adultery. But Tom disagrees and says, "We should stop spying on our neighbors' law." He further says that they should focus on their own relationship rather than worrying about others. After Tommy leaves, Pip sees that Julia is trying her best to make up with Brent for last night's argument. But Brent ignores her and walks away. At the weekend, Julia and Pip go to a spa and talk about their lives. Julia reveals that, I used to be a model but I left modeling as I felt objectified and sexualized. Julia then reveals that her husband's name, aka Brent, is actually Sebastian, and he is a well-known photographer. Sabby is more of a self-centric person, but without him, Julia doesn't think that she can do anything in her life. Pip wants to tell Julia about Sebastian's infidelity but decides not to. As days pass by, Pip continues watching her neighbors. One day, she sees Seb romancing two models at the same time, after which she throws the condom away. Okay. Later that night, Pip manages to discover a way to access Julia's wireless printer. Yay! She then uses it to anonymously expose Sebastian's infidelity to Julia and also mentions the condom as proof. Just then, Tom wakes up and catches Pip spying on Julia and Seb. He is shocked to discover that Pip has told Julia about her husband's infidelity, even though they agreed not to interfere with their neighbor's life. After learning the truth, Julia grabs a knife to kill Seb, but she couldn't do it. Instead, she all night. The next morning, Pip apologizes to Tom and promises to stop watching their neighbors. However, they then see Seb discover Julia's body in the bathroom after she seemingly slits her own throat. Tom is devastated to learn that because of him and Pip, an innocent woman lost her life. So he decides to move out for a while as he needs to be alone. Pip is heartbroken by Julia's death and starts blaming herself. But despite this, she continues to watch Sebastian. One evening, she sees Sebastian leaving and follows him to a nearby pub. Sebastian sits by Pip and strikes up a conversation with her. He then says, "Hey, come to my apartment. I want to take a photo of ya." Pip hesitates at first but eventually agrees to go, as she feels kinda bad. At the apartment, Seb tells Pip, "My last exhibition is opening in a few weeks, and I want to invite you to go there, my friend." He then asks Pip to take up your clothes for the photo shoot, which she does without any hesitation. He also removes his clothes and convinces Pip to pose nude for him. While taking the photos, Seb breaks down and says that she reminds him of his wife. He then kisses Pip and the two eventually get romantic. Meanwhile, Tommy Hotdog right here returns home as he feels bad for leaving Pip alone. He then consumes a drink Pip left in the fridge and pours some of it into her bird feeder. Just then, he notices Pip romancing Seb across the street. Tommy Tom is devastated to see his wife cheating on him. Of course. Now, the next morning, Pip returns to her apartment and is horrified to see Tom, who has killed himself. Days pass by, and Pip is confused and lost in her life. So one day, she goes to talk to her friend, Ari, and tells her everything that happened to her. Pip thinks that everything that happened is her fault, and that she shouldn't have cheated on Tom. But Ari tells her, "You didn't do anything wrong. You were just alone and lonely." Despite knowing that her infidelity caused Tom to die, she decides to go to Seb's exhibition, as she believes that if she sees him one more time, she may be able to move on. At the exhibition, Seb introduces everyone to Julia, who turns out to be very much alive. It is then revealed that Pip and Tom are actually the subjects of the exhibition. Seb and Julia reveal that they own the apartment rented by Pip and Tom. Pip and Tom thought they were watching their neighbor, but in truth they were being watched by Sebastian and Julia the whole time. Pip is horrified by this and storms out. She goes straight to Seb's apartment and finds the room from where he and Julia spied on them. Although Pip destroys everything, she knows that she can't change the past, so she decides to move out of her apartment for good. Before leaving, she checks the bird feeder and notices some dead birds just below her bird feeder. Pip quickly realizes that Tom didn't commit suicide, but was rather poisoned. During an interview, Sebastian reveals that the lease signed by Tom and Pip included a clause stating that they consented to be photographed. They explained that they did nothing wrong by spying on Pip and Tom, as they too were doing the same. After the interview, Sebastian and Julia return home and find a bottle of wine by their doors. As they drink the wine, Pip sends a message to their printer saying that she knows they killed Tom. So, Sebastian and Julia go after Pip, saying that they just want to talk to her. Pip leads them into La Chic, where she reveals that when she was romancing Seb, Julia must have poisoned Tom's drink and staged his suicide, just so that Seb and Julia can make money out of Pip's misery. Julia then explains that it's nothing personal, bro. It's just business. I need money. I want money. I love money. I like money. Just then, Julia faints all of a sudden. Pip then reveals that she spiked their wine, surprise surprise, causing Seb and Julia to faint. Once they pass out, Pip places them under a LASIK machine and burns their eyes. Now a couple of weeks later, a new couple moves into Pip and Tom's apartment. They observe Seb and Julia, both of whom are now blind. Pip is watching them from the rooftop and is relieved to see them suffer. She leaves her binoculars behind and is finally ready to move on. I don't know how I feel about this movie, but let me know what you think down in the comments. This was the story of the Voyeurs. I don't know how to pronounce that, but I'm gonna see you in the next hunt. Subscribe.